The initial romance, the cherished boyfriend, the pregnancy, everything appeared to be progressing wonderfully, suggesting a promising future ahead. However, unexpectedly, the main character of this love story vanished without a trace. The young man, the child's father, couldn't fathom that his fairy tale could come to such an abrupt end. As the details of Emily's disappearance began to emerge, the entire Dominican Republic was struck with horror. The Dominican Republic is a nation in the Caribbean, situated on the island of Hispaniola. The country is renowned for its beaches, resorts, and golf courses. However, in 2017, the entire world began discussing the Dominican Republic and its prevailing laws. All this was due to one 16-year-old girl. Emi Delin Peguero, or Emily as her friends called her, was born on July 12, 2001 in Chenove, a town about an hour's drive from Santo Domingo, the capital of the Dominican Republic. Emily was the youngest child in Adalgiza and Genaro's family. Even as she grew older, her elder siblings continued to treat her like a baby, constantly shielding and protecting her from hardships. Pretty, cheerful, and caring, Emily, with her adorable dimples, dreamed of becoming a lawyer when she grew up. The girl very much wanted to assist people who lacked the means to pay for expensive attorney services. She herself was raised in a low-income household and intended to work pro bono in the future. Emily was extremely kind and always desired to do something beneficial for the world. The Peguero family resided in a small, quaint house with shuttered windows, a flat roof, and a sun-faded butterfly mural on the front wall. Her parents had to work various low-paying jobs to somehow support their family. Despite the lack of luxuries in the girl's life, she was always provided with the most essential things. The family's low income didn't affect her character or mood. Emily studied well, was sociable, and spent a lot of time with her friends and family. She adored applying stage makeup, dressing up in some costume, and performing for her loved ones. All of her parents' financial troubles faded into the background when they watched their youngest daughter dancing and laughing. Emily's family was truly happy, regardless of the difficulties they faced. Her mother and father did everything possible to give their children love and attention, and they succeeded wonderfully at it. When Emily turned 15, she started dating a boy named Marlon Martinez, who was 18 at the time. Although the young man's family lived across the street, he and Emily existed in completely different worlds. The young people had known each other since childhood, and their relationship began as a tender friendship. Marlon was born in the United States, and when he was 8 or 9 years old, his family returned to the Dominican Republic and settled in a large house with a beautiful front yard across the street from Emily. They had a completely different financial status. The boy's parents, his mother and stepfather, were quite well off, so they sent their son to study at a prestigious school outside the town. Marlon Martinez's mother was involved in politics and was quite a well-known figure. At one point, she had even been the mayor of the province. Now the woman held a government position and was responsible for issuing visas and passports, as well as participating in many city campaigns, so she had many useful connections in society. Marlon wielded considerable power at the local level. There were rumors that Marlon illegally assisted with obtaining visas. So many people were indebted to her. She was never held accountable for this because there was always some patron. In reality, Marlon, to be honest, wasn't the most pleasant person. Emily's father had once worked as a private security guard for Marlon and knew firsthand how aggressive and short-tempered this woman could be. For some reason, she decided that having money and power meant she could treat others however she pleased. Marlon considered herself several steps above everyone else and believed she could get away with anything. Due to her malicious nature, the townspeople secretly called her the devil. Friends, over 90% of viewers watch videos without subscribing to the channel. Check if you're subscribed. If not, please be so kind as to subscribe to the channel to support me. The woman was constantly occupied with politics and career building, so she often needed assistance in caring for her 3 sons, one of whom was Marlon. To avoid hiring a special nanny, she arranged with her neighbor, Emily's mother, to look after the children for a certain fee. Marlon would bring the boys over and then leave for her business. The children from the 2 families quickly became friends through their shared playtime. Sometimes the Martinezes even stayed overnight at the neighbors. This indicated that Marlon greatly trusted Adalgiza, Emily's mother's name, leaving her sons in her care. And despite the social difference, the families were very close. Because of how often Marlon and his brothers visited the neighbor's house, all the children treated each other like family very warmly. While they were little, they played together, but as they began to grow older, they saw each other much less frequently, crossing paths only in passing. And when Emily turned 15 and Marlon 18, they resumed communication. At first, they hung out together and then began dating as boyfriend and girlfriend. Many were shocked by such an age difference because the age of consent in the Dominican Republic is 18, and Emily was considered a minor. The girl's family also didn't approve of this relationship, mainly because of Marlon, the young man's mother. Recently, the woman had gotten into a fight with another neighbor over some trifle, and the people living on the same street disliked the arrogant woman even more. However, regardless of what Marlon's mother was like, he himself was just a regular friendly guy. Adalgiza, one could say, had been involved in his upbringing for several years. Emily's father didn't interfere, as he knew how Marlon looked down on those who were poorer. He simply didn't approve of this relationship, but couldn't forbid it either, not wanting to quarrel with his daughter, who was clearly in love. The man just felt uncomfortable due to his neighbor's hot-tempered nature. In 2017, Emily was about to turn 16. Her relationship with Marlon continued, and everything seemed to be going well. But in spring, something shocking occurred. The girl felt slightly unwell and didn't immediately understand what was wrong. Her boyfriend, due to his age, quickly guessed what might have happened. After several tests, their suspicions were confirmed, and Emily realized she was pregnant. This came as a surprise to the young couple. The thing is, termination of pregnancy under any circumstances is prohibited by law in the Dominican Republic. So Emily knew that she would have to give birth to the child one way or another. In the Dominican Republic, a predominantly Catholic country, abortion had been declared a criminal offense. In 2012, prison sentences were introduced for people assisting in these operations, including medical staff, as well as friends and relatives. Emily was still very young. Moreover, she was worried that she didn't have the means to raise a future child, but her boyfriend reassured her. She was afraid to approach her parents, not knowing how her mother and father would react to such news, but there was no point in delaying further. Emily gathered her thoughts and told her sister and mother about the pregnancy. Her father, Genaro, only found out about it 5 months later. One day during a work break, he came home to have lunch with his family. When the man looked into the kitchen, he saw the tense face of his wife and asked what had happened. Adalgiza shocked him by revealing that their youngest daughter was 5 months pregnant. The man clutched his head and asked how it happened that a child was going to have a child. This news stunned him so much that for the first half hour, he couldn't calm down at all. Finally, pulling himself together, Genaro promised to talk to the future young parents, but asked for time to come to terms with this news. The saddest part was that Genaro learned about his daughter's pregnancy only 9 days before the girl disappeared. They simply didn't have time to sit down and talk as father and daughter. About a week after this, Marlon's stepfather, Roberto, approached Genaro and suggested they gather to discuss the future child's welfare. The man agreed to the meeting, and together with Roberto and Marlon, they had an open conversation. The young man told his girlfriend's father that he intended to take responsibility for this baby and care for Emily. Roberto also intervened and promised to help his stepson as much as possible. This talk somewhat calmed Genaro, but he still couldn't come to terms with the idea that his little daughter would be a mother. The man set a condition that Emily, along with the child, would continue living with her family since she was underage, and both families would take turns caring for the newborn. Genaro still considered Emily a child, and despite the pregnancy, didn't intend to let her go. In the father's opinion, she should still live under his roof, at least until she turned 18. Genaro loved his daughter and would support her in any case. Marlon seemed to agree with this arrangement, and Roberto supported him in this. The only person who was truly unhappy about Emily's pregnancy was Marlon's mother, Marlon. She was not at all satisfied with this state of affairs. She felt her son was making a big mistake. He shouldn't have allowed this child to interfere with his college studies and ruin his bright future. Marlon was also very concerned about her own family's reputation, not wanting people to gossip that the Martinezes had become related to poor people. The woman had turned a blind eye to her son dating this girl, but having a child together was beyond anything she could accept. On August 23, 2017, 16-year-old Emily got up early and prepared to go somewhere. When her mother asked, she explained that Marlon had promised to take her to a doctor's appointment to collect test results. The girl promised to be gone for a very short time, so Adalgiza saw her daughter to the front door and watched as Emily got into her boyfriend's car before they drove away. The woman continued with her usual chores, prepared breakfast, tidied the house, and had already started preparing lunch. It was at that moment she realized her daughter still wasn't home, which was very odd because Emily had promised to return within an hour. If her daughter was going somewhere, she always notified her parents. She would either call or send a message if she was running late and would always specify when she'd return home. However, for several hours, no one had heard anything from Emily, which caused some concern for her mother. Then, around 11:30, Emily's sister received a text message. The girl wrote that Marlon had left her at a gas station because she decided to meet with her uncle. This message from Emily should have reassured her relatives, but instead, it intensified their worry. Firstly, the girl had never sent text messages before, preferring voice messages. Secondly, which uncle had she suddenly decided to meet with when she hadn't even mentioned it earlier? Thirdly, the tone of the message didn't sound like Emily. All of this seemed very strange and wrong. Adalgiza sent her elder daughter to Marlon's to clarify where Emily had gone. The girl crossed the street and knocked on the door of the neighboring house where the Martinez family still lived. The young man opened the door and began explaining the situation. Allegedly, in the morning when they were heading to the clinic, Emily realized she had mixed up the dates and that her test results wouldn't be ready until Friday. Instead of going home, the pregnant girl asked to be dropped off at a gas station because she had managed to arrange a meeting with her uncle. Marlon agreed. He dropped Emily off at the gas station, gave her some money just in case, and made sure she got into her uncle's car that had pulled up. At least that's what the boy thought, and it was the last time he saw his girlfriend. Adalgiza and her older daughter went to the gas station to ask employees if they had seen where the car with the girl had gone. When the women reached the station, they requested to check the surveillance camera footage. It turned out that neither Emily nor Marlon had been at the gas station that morning. Either the young man had simply confused the name, or he was, for some reason, not telling the truth. However, Marlon still insisted that he had dropped the girl off there. Emily herself wasn't answering calls. Adalgiza didn't waste time and immediately called the police, reporting the disappearance of her pregnant underage daughter. She, along with her other children, began distributing flyers with Emily's photo. The woman wanted her child to return home quickly and didn't want to lose a second. The girl's family didn't initially think she had been abducted by a stranger or that she had gotten into trouble. They were all certain that Marlon had something to do with her disappearance. Moreover, they suspected not the young man himself, but his mother, Marlon. Adalgiza directly told reporters that the Martinez family definitely knew where Emily was, but they refused to say where the girl was. The reason was that Genaro, the missing girl's father, had accidentally stumbled upon a message from Marlon on his daughter's phone where she was trying to convince his son's girlfriend to terminate the pregnancy. Such an important person as Marlon's mother considered herself to be didn't need a child conceived out of wedlock. Emily's parents were convinced that Marlon somehow wanted to get rid of the unwanted pregnancy. These messages were received on August 19, 2017, just 4 days before Emily disappeared. The essence of the messages was that Marlon was offering the girl to end her condition at home. The woman promised to take care that everything would go well. At first, Emily categorically refused, but then, tired of the manipulations, said she would trust the adult, experienced woman. When Genaro reported this conversation, suspicions towards the Martinez family intensified even more. But the most alarming signal was that Marlon, as soon as Emily was officially declared missing, rushed to hire a lawyer. It's not entirely logical to turn to a lawyer if you have nothing to do with the disappearance. When after 24 hours the girl still hadn't shown up, rumors about this case spread throughout the area. And now not only Emily's family, but other townspeople suspected the Martinez family in her disappearance. Genaro, the family patriarch, was very concerned about his girl's fate. He couldn't imagine where and how she had spent that August night. Was she healthy or suffering from pain somewhere? It was a serious and frightening situation. When alone, he couldn't hold back tears of despair, although in public he stayed strong and didn't show his emotions. The man knew that if someone close saw his tears, they would lose hope for a favorable outcome. After the entire community learned about the disappearance of the pregnant girl and the involvement of her boyfriend's family, Marlon decided to hold a press conference to refute rumors and prove their innocence. Marlon, having numerous connections, invited several reporters to help quickly dispel the myths associated with her family. The press conference took place in the living room of the Martinez residence. Marlon, Emily's boyfriend, was dressed casually in a regular t-shirt. The young man looked down throughout the interview and was very nervous. It was noticeable how he was shaking. Marlon, on the other hand, was dressed in a formal suit. Her hair was done and she looked quite confident. The ex-mayor of the province took the initiative in the conversation. She had experience speaking in public and carried herself well, but the first questions were addressed to her son. The boy once again recounted the story of how they were driving to the clinic, how Emily realized she had mixed up the dates, how he dropped her off at the gas station, and so on. Then Marlon finally looked at the camera and began to plead for his girlfriend to return home. He said that in their couple, as in most others, there were problems. But in the end, all their loved ones had accepted the unexpected pregnancy and were eagerly awaiting the arrival of the baby. Then he turned his gaze to the camera lens and, barely holding back tears, addressed Emily Peguero. Wherever she was, he said he was waiting for her with open arms. After this, his mother took the floor and stated that all the rumors concerning their family were absolutely untrue, that the Martinezes had nothing to do with Emily's disappearance. Because that morning, Marlon was taking Emily's grandmother to the consulate to process some documents. This woman wanted to emphasize once again how close they were to the missing girl's family and tried to use her trip as an alibi. During the interview, Marlon continued to emphasize how close Emily was to them and how much they loved her. She mentioned that the girl, carrying her grandson in her womb, had already become part of their family, and now they were worried about her no less than the Peguero family. Like Marlon before, Marlon looked directly into the camera and addressed her son's girlfriend, begging her not to make them suffer and to let them know her whereabouts. She even started to choke up while talking about it, and it seemed she was barely holding back tears. Marlon urged anyone willing to ask them and her son any questions they were interested in. They would give an interview to everyone because they had nothing to hide. The press conference organized by Marlon's mother only caused confusion. Many people found it strange and wondered why the Martinezes didn't invite Emily Peguero's family to also address the public. Actions speak louder than words, and most Shanova residents were only convinced that the purpose of the press conference was merely an attempt to justify themselves. There's no smoke without fire. And since rumors had started that the Martinezes were guilty of the girl's disappearance, it must be so. At the conference, both mother and son spoke about Emily in the past tense. This small detail also made everyone think that they knew something about the girl and what had happened to her. The public felt that this was a common case where a rich, influential family simply decided to get rid of a young, poor girl to save their own reputation. In general, instead of dispelling public suspicions, the press conference only added fuel to the fire. Despite the suspicions surrounding Marlon from all sides, he went to the Peguero family's house. Seeing the upset faces of his neighbors, The boy decided to turn himself in to the police, understanding that he would most likely be arrested and interrogated. And on August 26, 2017, Marlon was indeed arrested as the main suspect and sent to a detention center. But the main question, whether Emily Peguero was alive, remained unanswered. Detectives did everything possible to find a trace of the girl, and 5 days after her disappearance, the local police made a breakthrough. On Monday, August 28th, they tracked the geolocation of Emily's phone. The phone last rang in an apartment building in the prestigious San Francisco de Macorís district. There was Marlon Martinez's apartment. While the children lived with their stepfather Roberto in Chenove, their mother often traveled on business and stayed in this apartment. A search of the premises revealed blood splatter on the mattress and several towels with blood stains. These items were sent to the forensic laboratory. Meanwhile, the police questioned potential witnesses. 2 days later, the apartment building's security guard revealed shocking information. The man said that on the day Emily disappeared, August 23rd, he saw on surveillance cameras Marlon carrying a large bag out of the building and loading it into his car. The guard couldn't think of anything better than to call the young man's mother. Marlon came downstairs to personally see the recordings. While watching, the woman clearly became nervous, grabbed her head, and began to scream. And after some time, the video recording disappeared. The guard didn't know where it had gone, but didn't rule out that Martinez could have somehow removed it. Public anger continued to grow, with much of it directed at Martinez's mother. Many saw her as the person behind Emily's disappearance. People who knew what Marlon was like were sure she was covering for her son, using wealth and influence. On the day the guard reported the stolen video recording to the police, Marlon Martinez showed up at the police station and turned herself in to the authorities. Her lawyer insisted she did this only to cooperate with the police, but everyone else thought she was simply anticipating her imminent arrest. During her arrest, a reporter asked her if she was involved in Emily Peguero's disappearance, to which Marlon replied that she was merely protecting her son as a mother. These words struck a chord with many people. It seemed she, as a mother, had done away with someone else's daughter, and worse yet, with a girl who was carrying her grandchild. Finally, all the puzzle pieces started falling into place. August 30th, 2017 was an extremely tense day for the detectives. First, they learned about incriminating footage from a security guard. Then Marlon Martinez turned herself in to the authorities. Later that same day, her son Marlon confessed to the police. The Peguero family's worst fears were confirmed. The young man admitted that Emily was no longer alive. He told investigators that he had left her body at a local dump. This information shocked not only the girl's loved ones but the entire community. People who had been moved by the story of the young pregnant girl were still clinging to hope that Emily might be alive. But the boyfriend's confession shattered their hearts. Police officers, along with Marlon, headed to the local dump to search for the girl's body. As soon as they stopped near the dump, the patrol car was surrounded by enraged townspeople. People wanted to express their thoughts to the criminal face to face. Officers even had to fire warning shots to disperse the crowd. Law enforcement didn't risk letting Marlon out of the car. They spent over 8 hours sifting through trash and waste, but found nothing. The next morning, Chenove residents expressed their discontent by blocking roads at 9 a.m. and demanding that Marlon stop toying with the Peguero family's emotions and tell the police where he hid Emily's body. They burned tires, threw stones, and threatened to destroy the Martinez home. Police even had to take measures to restore order. The prayers of parents and concerned townspeople were answered because later that day, a body was discovered in Espaillat province, about an hour's drive from Chenove. A flood of messages from various people filled Emily's older brother's phone messenger. They all wrote that a body of an unknown girl had been found in the neighboring province. Police, the Peguero family, and other relatives headed to the scene to finally learn what happened to Emily. They arrived after sunset, the darkness illuminated only by police lights and flashlights. A crowd stood on the roadside, and in the center lay a suitcase containing Emily Peguero's decomposing body. a 16-year-old girl 5 months pregnant. After extraction from the suitcase, the body was sent to the medical examiner's office. The autopsy was conducted fairly quickly. It was found that Emily had suffered internal bleeding, presumably caused by a failed attempt to terminate her pregnancy. She had also received a blow to the skull with a blunt object. According to the forensic examination, death came very quickly. Most likely, the girl didn't even have time to understand what happened. Unfortunately, the Peguero family and the public were right from the start. All this happened because Marlon and his mother Marlon were not happy about Emily's pregnancy. They were adamant in their desire to get rid of someone who could damage their reputation. When the autopsy results were made public, everyone was furious. By that time, the story of the missing girl had spread worldwide. Her photos in a red traditional Dominican dress flooded social media. This attracted the attention of several celebrities who shared information about Peguero among millions of followers. In an attempt to garner support, the girl's family launched a campaign with the hashtag #WeAreAllEmily. Relatives didn't want the Martinezes to get away with it because they were wealthy and influential. Communities truly united to pressure authorities and prevent this case from being buried. While people across the internet expressed their opinions about the incident, the parents faced a harsh reality. Emily Peguero was buried in a white casket. Many people came to bid her farewell, all holding pink balloons. Numerous attendees brought flowers for Emily and gifts for the Peguero family to show their support during such a difficult time. Meanwhile, the police conducted their investigation. They discovered that Marlon hadn't taken Emily to the gas station that morning, as he had told her sister and reporters. This was a complete fabrication. To conceal this, he had sent a message from her mobile phone to Peguero's sister. Adalgisa, Emily's mother, wasn't mistaken when she doubted its authenticity. Instead of the gas station, Marlon took the girl to his mother's empty apartment, where he forced her to drink an unknown liquid that could have triggered a termination of her pregnancy. This caused internal bleeding. Emily became frightened and possibly tried to flee or lunged at her boyfriend. He pushed her, misjudging his strength. Peguero fell and hit her head. She died almost instantly. After taking Emily's life, Marlon placed her body in a bag, left his mother's apartment, and loaded the burden onto the back seat of his car. It was then that he was caught on the apartment building's surveillance cameras. The young man drove around town and, unable to think of anything better, dropped the bag containing his girlfriend's body from a bridge onto the ground. He then called his mother and told her what he had done. Marlon asked her to help better conceal the body so it wouldn't be discovered immediately. Later that day, a security guard called her and showed her the video footage. That's when Marlon realized her son could end up behind bars and sought help. Early on August 24th, Marlon, along with his son and 2 accomplices, discussed what to do with Peguero's body. Angry that her son hadn't thought to hide the girl's remains in a secluded place, she insisted on correcting the mistake. The woman bribed an acquaintance to help re-hide the remains. The man went to where the bag containing Emily's body lay under the bridge. He transferred the body into a suitcase and dumped it on a roadside about an hour's drive from Chenov. He hoped that when the suitcase was discovered, it couldn't be linked to Emily's disappearance. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you like this video. It's really important. Eventually, alongside the Martinezes, the police arrested 4 more individuals: Marlon's brother, her close friend, and 2 employees. However, all 4 agreed to testify and act as witnesses, so they spent some time in a detention center before being released. These people weren't directly involved in the crime and cooperated with the police. In the end, Marlon and his mother Marlon were the only ones who stood trial for taking Emily's life. The trial was incredibly tense. Throughout the 9 months following the girl's death, each week brought a new dramatic moment to the pre-trial proceedings. Members of the Peguero family boycotted some hearings. Several defense attorneys withdrew outside the courtroom, and local activists staged protests. Ordinary people, residents of Chenov, threatened to harm Marlon and his mother. It got to the point where Marlon had to wear a bulletproof vest and protective helmet when brought to the courthouse. Otherwise, the enraged public would have simply torn her apart. In April, Emily Peguero's father, Genaro, was arrested after attempting to bring a firearm into the courtroom. When the prosecution decided to recreate the crime scene, they brought in the suitcase in which the girl was found, along with a pair of shoes and clothing. The evidence emitted such a strong odor that the investigative experiment had to be conducted outdoors. Everyone gathered outside in the parking lot, and the prosecution team demonstrated the position in which the body was found and how it was extracted from the suitcase. It was extremely difficult for the Peguero family to watch this demonstration. They were already crushed by grief, and now they had to relive it all again. The defense attorney claimed that Marlon was innocent in his girlfriend's death. He hadn't intended to take her life that morning. Marlon's own story changed 3 times during the investigation. First, he confessed to finishing off Emily and leaving her body at the dump. The second time, the young man stated that Peguero had taken a pill herself because she was very distressed about her pregnancy, and this pill led to the fatal outcome. The third version was that his mother wasn't involved at all and didn't even know Emily had died. Marlon's inconsistent accounts led to a complete loss of credibility. The Peguero family's lawyer believed that after Marlon's attempt to forcibly terminate the pregnancy failed, he decided it would be better if Emily simply disappeared rather than taking her to the hospital and risking his freedom. He hadn't expected her body to be found, nor had he anticipated such a reaction from the community. The lawyer openly criticized the Martinezes and wasn't afraid of Marlon's connections. His actions and words impressed the public. Of all the Peguero family, Adalgiza suffered the most, as she had once cared for this boy and his brothers. She fed them, put them to bed, and looked after them while Marlon built her career. Now, one of her charges had taken her youngest daughter's life. It felt like a slap in the face to the family. Emily's loved ones sincerely believed that all this happened because Marlon didn't want her son to have a child with a girl from a poor family. And Emily's demise was just the result of a failed intervention. But this in no way justified her being discarded like an unwanted object on the roadside. The trial was lengthy and extremely tense. In November 2018, a panel of 3 judges found Marlon Martinez guilty of intentionally taking Emily Peguero's life and sentenced him to 30 years in prison. His mother, Marlon Martinez, was found guilty of abduction and concealment of the body. She was sentenced to only 5 years in prison. When the verdict was read, shouts of anger erupted in the courtroom. People couldn't believe this woman would spend only 5 years behind bars after what she did to Emily. People protested against such a sentence, demanding Marlon's imprisonment for at least 20 years. But the court's decision remained unchanged. Marlon's lawyer said he planned to appeal, arguing that the young man's only intention was to make his girlfriend get rid of their shared problem, not to take Emily's life. It just didn't go as he planned, just like that. In addition to the sentences, the Martinezes also had to pay monetary compensation to the Peguero family, but money wouldn't bring back their daughter. All the parents wanted was justice, but they felt they didn't receive it. The next blow to their hearts came on May 15, 2019, when an appeals court reduced Marlon's sentence to just 2 years. The reason was that there was actually no way to prove the woman had committed a crime. She only knew about her son's misconduct and didn't report it to the police. Then, in September 2020, a judge effectively ordered Marlon Martinez's immediate release. It's possible her connections played a role in this. When she left the correctional facility, a crowd stood near the prison shouting insults. Nevertheless, Marlon is now free and living her life quietly somewhere in the United States. Her son Marlon remains behind bars, though he enjoys special privileges there. There were rumors that another 16-year-old girl became pregnant by him. Apparently, guards sometimes allowed Marlon to leave prison and then return. None of this resembled the triumph of justice. Emily's father, Genaro, remembers how before leaving for work, he would go into his daughter's room and say goodbye, kissing her forehead. This ritual was part of their daily life, and now this memory tears his heart to pieces. In memory of his sister, Emily's brother wrote a 4-minute song telling everything that happened to her. The music video ends with the brother seeing Marlon pretending to cry at a press conference on TV and simply getting up and smashing the television. Emily's bedroom remains in the same state as the girl left it before her death. Red paper hearts, symbolizing love, are stuck to the headboard, and the window is draped with neon pink curtains. On her bedside table lies a stack of handmade bracelets, a small statue of Jesus, and a framed photo of the Pope. Her clothes are folded in the closet next to her collection of stuffed animals. The only new thing in the room is a collage of photos and messages in memory of Emily, made by students from her school. Latin America has one of the highest rates of femicide in the world. Every year in the Dominican Republic, about 200 crimes against women occur. In reality, this number is much higher, as not all crimes are reported. When the police were searching for Emily's body, they discovered the bodies of two 18-year-old girls. One was killed by her stepfather, and the other by her boyfriend. And although Emily Peguero's death was just one case among many, the brutality of the crime and the involvement of a government official shocked the entire Dominican Republic. This is the end of the story. Like the video and leave your thoughts in the comments. This was Jeremy. See you soon.